we're so pegged into becoming something that society believes we should be, yet we should be allowed to be who we want, as long as we're not hurting anybody, and more often than not, you're not. My name is Maynard Johnny Jr. My traditional name is Theikwitan, and it means big fire. I received that name from my uncle Shane from the Musqueam tribe, and it's Coast Salish. My father's Coast Salish and my mother's Kwakwaka'wakw. So I have two different backgrounds that I derive from, and I'm grateful to be a part of. My family lineage ties back thousands of years, and I've been fortunate to become an artist for a living, and it's kind of connected me to what I'm doing for Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week. I think men are becoming more and more fashion sensible. They are looking for more ways to express themselves through fashion. One of the things I actually find difficult as an Indigenous fashion lover is there's very few Indigenous fashion for men. Also, we're not all shaped the same. So finding Indigenous fashion that will cater to our size, whether we're bigger or smaller, I think is important as well. So finding ways to include men's fashion with Indigenous design on them is I think something designers might be able to strive for. Well, I mean, for me, the reason I got involved with Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week was my love for fashion, let alone Indigenous fashion, but fashion as a whole. To have something that relates to me as an Indigenous person was even more intriguing to me. The idea Jolene Mitten has for creating opportunities for especially our women, but Indigenous people overall, to thrive towards something that we didn't have before. Opportunities weren't given to us during our parents' era. It started to change for them, even more so for my generation. So I think the idea of Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week providing that inspiration, providing that tool to allow us to see we belong to something special as Indigenous people, but also creating the awareness to non-Indigenous people that we are here, that we did have fashion, we did have culture, we do have things that other people can relate to, not just Indigenous people. And fashion is a great way, just like art, just like music, to connect with people that aren't necessarily Indigenous. I think it's limitations of what's accessible for men. When it comes to fashion, I believe there's not as much out there for us to choose from as there is for women. You know, it's not about the battle of the sexes, it's just it's not there. And I think that's something some of the designers are starting to recognize, that we need more fashion for men that they can choose from, as opposed to, you know, not being able to have something. Like red dress night's prime example. It's very hard as an Indigenous man to find something red that will work within that night to raise the awareness of murder missing Indigenous women. So red dress night always becomes a task for me to find something that's strikingly red so they can represent the awareness. Yeah, I mean, as anything, the Indigenous fashion world kind of relates to the art world. It kind of relates to even music or acting in a TV show or a movie or a commercial. It shows us representation of who we are as Indigenous people. So when you see a movie that has predominantly Indigenous actors, or the main character is an Indigenous actor, then you're more relatable to that and realize that there's representation of who you are. And fashion, as well as music and art and acting and anything in the arts, gives us that opportunity to be recognized as someone who's here and someone who has the ability to move forward in life. It's difficult in a colonial sense of the world that we incorporate our Indigenous beliefs into it. And now we're being able to do that through fashion, through art, through music, to show people who we are, and we've been here and we're not going anywhere. So I think that's an important part of what Fashion Week does for Indigenous people. It gives us the inspiration to know we can move forward in a positive way. At the same time, it raises the awareness of the trials and tribulations we've had as Indigenous people, and creating the awareness to non-Indigenous people that things need to change, and we're not wanting to be treated special, we're just wanting to be treated equally and fairly. And I think this is a great way where people aren't feeling attacked. They're not feeling like we're pointing the finger at you. We're just showing you we have a beautiful culture, we have a beautiful tradition that we follow, whether it's through fashion, whether it's through art, whether it's through music. Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week is a great way to do that. Yeah, myself. No. In all seriousness, I have a friend of mine that he's a Haida artist, and arguably some people would consider him the rock star of the art world, like the Indigenous art world, and his name's Robert Davidson. And I've, in the last 7-8 years, have become friends with Robert and been able to just basically hang out with him, sit with him, have lunch, have dinner. And it's kind of a neat way for me to be able to hang out with someone who's inspired my whole career, inspired my wanting to be an artist. And as I got to know him, he's very fashionable. He wears very fashionable clothes, whether it's right down to the socks, the shoes. He wears really nice shirts and pants that are not just blue jeans, they're like bright red or they're pink. There's very few that are able to do that. Especially as artists, we're kind of in the shop all day. It's usually sweats and a t-shirt, but when we get to go to events like Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week, it's nice to be able to dress up in something that's flashy. Maybe some people are more classic with the black tux, but I like to go flashy. So I hope I'm kind of creating that inspiration for other men to feel like they can dress and wear things that might make them feel good about themselves. Growing up, I was kind of picked on. I've always been into fashion. One day I would be wearing tight black jeans with holes in the knees and a Metallica t-shirt and, my hair all, mulleted out, and I would be picked on. And the next day I'd wear a pink polo shirt and khaki pants, and people couldn't understand, but I just wore what I felt good in. That's who I've always been. And I could care less what people think of me anymore. I really love fashion. I really love being flashy when it comes to going to things like events like Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week or an art show or a concert where I can wear more than just sweats and a t-shirt. Well, my belief has always been be who you want to be, not allowing people to dictate who you should be, in a sense that if you want to wear a pink shirt, wear a pink shirt. It shouldn't matter if somebody bullies you because you're wearing a pink shirt. And I think that message is coming across in the last 10 years or so with Anti-Bullying Day. If you're not hurting anybody and you're actually creating a positive energy by representing who you are as a person, then there shouldn't be a problem with it. And if somebody's offended by that, that's kind of their problem. It's not yours. You're not breaking any laws. You're not hurting anybody. You're just being you. And that shouldn't be a problem. Well, it's funny, for me, it was kind of intimidating in a sense that I'm friends with one of the designers, Yolanda Skelton, and I had worn this yellow suit to my friend's wedding, and Yolanda said, "You're walking that on Fashion Week, I'm going to create a tie for you." And this was July, and Fashion Week was in November, so I just thought she was like not really serious about it. And I got to the first day and she's like, "Where's your yellow suit?" And I'm like, "You were serious about that?" So in a sense, for me, it was like intimidating. Even as I'm walking on the stage, I was basically just saying, "Don't fall on your face, don't fall on your face, don't fall on your face." I look back at it now and I kind of remember walking, but at the time, that night, I don't remember nothing from the walk. I just remember, don't fall on your face. But it was empowering to a sense, I believe, that it made me feel good to know I could do something that I was scared of. I don't believe I'm a model. I love wearing things that make me feel good. And that yellow suit was something that made me feel good. Very flashy, very in your face, but it made me feel good about who I am. And I like to look flashy. That's just who I am. It led me to walking for Fashion Week, which at the time wasn't empowering, but after I did it, it was empowering. And of course, the next Fashion Week, we did the same thing with a red suit. She created a red tie for me to wear. But we had to do tandem, and that kind of threw me, again, intimidating again. It's like, what? I got to walk with this beautiful woman and, keep up with her and make sure everything's, on the up and up. And So again, it was intimidating, and again, it was empowering at the end of it. I realized I did something even more so that I was scared of. So revitalization and Indigenous culture is quite a broad spectrum of who we are as Indigenous people. Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week is one avenue we're taking to create awareness of who we are as Indigenous people through art, through fashion. But if you look at the history of our people, especially in Canada and the United States, there were so many things created and done to our people to oppress us, to keep us from moving forward as Indigenous people. I won't get deeply into it, but the Indian Act is one which is still intact today. They had the potlatch ban, they had the Indian residential school, all these things that were designed to oppress us or basically destroy us as people. And art and fashion and music were one of the things we managed to keep alive throughout history of Canada oppressing us, not allowing us to be who we are. The potlatch ban was one of the things that was created to destroy the Indian and who we are. The Indian Act, it was created to destroy us as Indian people, and is still intact today. And nowhere in the world that I can think of is there an act that describes who you are as a person in that country. It's a clear sign of oppression that people don't want to acknowledge and people don't want to accept. And I could go on to a huge number of things that will educate Canadians alike why it's unfair. And I actually hope I can create something that will raise awareness of why things are the way they are today for Indigenous people. Not in a sense to blame people, it's to have people understand and realize that things have to change for us to move forward. And that includes everybody else other than Indigenous people. So for me, revitalization through fashion is revitalizing our culture, our art, our traditions, and allowing us to have a platform to inform non-Indigenous people who we are and who we've been this whole time, regardless of the oppressions of the things that were designed to hold us back. For me, VIFW is a vehicle or a way to create awareness for non-Indigenous people to understand who we are, where we come from. It gives us a stage that we've never had before to show different Indigenous cultures, different Indigenous fashions. With our culture comes song, with our culture comes art, with our culture comes fashion. And we combine all those for Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week to show who we are as people, not just on the West Coast, not just on the East Coast, but all across Turtle Island. And I think it plays an important role to help us move forward in the United States and Canada's colonial society. I always say the future's Indigenous, and I don't mean we're taking over. I don't mean we're gonna own everything. I mean, we need to incorporate Indigenous traditions, cultures, and beliefs into a colonial system that is not working for anybody or everybody. It's broken, and it needs to be revitalized, and it needs to include some of our traditions and our beliefs. And when we do that, everybody's allowed to move forward in a positive way, not just us or them. And I think art, music, fashion is leading the way to create that awareness so that we can move forward in a good way. My message for our youth is to realize that you can be ambitious. You can thrive to be something you want to be, whether it's in fashion, whether it's in art or music or acting or being a doctor, being a lawyer, or being a plumber, or being an electrician. If it's something you want to do and you dedicate yourself to it, it's the old cliche. You only become good at what you want if you dedicate yourself and if you commit yourself to doing it. And that means failing. That means not being where you want to be when you want to be there. I've been an artist for 30 years, and in the last 8 or 9 years, I've been considered what's successful. And I strive to do better and more, especially for my people, for Indigenous people. And for me, it's like when I started, I wanted to be rich and famous. And now I realize my legacy is to create the awareness of where Indigenous people are today and why we're here today, so that my daughter and my grandkids and my great-grandkids can have opportunities I didn't have. My parents didn't have, and my grandparents definitely didn't have. I mean, my grandparents weren't allowed to leave the reserve. They weren't allowed to go past grade 5. With that education, what kind of future could you have? If you're not allowed to leave the reserve, what kind of job could you get to provide for your family, let alone move forward in a positive way? The hardships they went through to create the opportunities for my parents, and then my mother was the first generation to go to university. I'm the first generation not to go to residential school. All the hardships that my ancestors went through created this opportunity for me to be a successful artist and have opportunities that I probably wouldn't have had if they didn't go through what they went through. And I've realized now my legacy is to create that change for my grandkids. That's one of the reasons I support Jolene Mitten and Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week as best I can, because they're creating the opportunities for our youth and inspiration for our youth to be able to move forward in a positive way. And that's kind of why I'm here.
How did that feel?
Good, yeah.